I tried to kill myself in early January of 1992 because life just wasn't worth living. And my life at that point just started to get progressively worse. So I started working for a local radio station, a local magazine, and a local TV station so that I could learn every aspect of storytelling.
And it's the passion of food that every culture, almost everybody has. There's definitely people out there who don't eat, but most people, I feel like, have that, even if it's just a nostalgic dish.
That's 100% true.
When it comes to your recipe for success, what are the 3 key ingredients?
3 ingredients. Number 1, be willing to invest in the loss. Other one would be, I'm a talker and an over-talker. Third question there that you always gets hung up. It may be true. It may need to be said. It may not be up to me to say it. The other one would be...
Welcome back to Dine and Grind, where hustle meets heat. I'm Daniel Shemtob. Today I'm sitting with Andrew Zimmern, chef, 4 times James Beard winner, and the man who convinced America that goat burgers and fried tarantulas belong in the same sentence as comfort food. Beyond the screen, Andrew's story is radical authenticity. From rebuilding his life after addiction, to building a media empire, and now co-designing a chef-grade snib shoe that mirrors his fearless style. We're talking about saying yes to wild ideas, making the uncommon mainstream, and expressing identity from plate to sneaker. Quick shout out before we fire up the convo. Years ago, I wiped out on a slick kitchen floor and paid for it in medical bills and pain. So I teamed up with a top orthopedic surgeon and a fellow restaurateur to build Snibs. Non-slip all-day shoes made for folks who grind on their feet, and a proud sponsor of this podcast. Grab yours at snibs.co. Let's get into service with Andrew Zimmern. Andrew, welcome aboard.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So I want to take us back to New York. This is the early days, right? You moved to New York when you were how old?
I was born there.
You moved there when you were negative years old.
1961, I was born. I was doing the math yesterday, and this weekend that you and I are recording this is the 50th anniversary, 50, my years cooking professionally.
Wow.
In restaurants. My first job started this weekend 50 years ago.
And walk us through that first job. What was a young Andrew in the city like?
It was during the summer. My father said to me, you're 14. There is no more allowance. Get a job. And all my friends were like, oh, come work at the landscapers with us. You know, it's like $3 an hour. And, you get sandwiches for lunch. And I was like, oh, that sounds nice. I said, what's the work like? It's like, oh, we transplant trees, but basically we're hauling dirt and, raking and, all this stuff. And, you get up at 5 and you start and you're done by 4:00. I'm just thinking to myself, this sounds awful. I called my godmother who owned a seafood restaurant in the village where we had a summer home. And I said, I want to work for you this summer. Would you hire me? And she said, sure. And she says, I'll stop by tonight. She drove over. We talked, and I found out that I was going to be working, 5 nights a week at her restaurant, working the raw bar, but also helping on the cold side with other jobs in the kitchen, with other prep stuff, and all stuff that I knew I could do. And I think I was paid $5 an hour. I think that was the job, which was a lot then. It was a lot. I said yes right away. And the first night that I went in there, I remember the first, whoever was training me in showed me, okay, this is, here's the Neptune platter. Here's the Aquaman platter. Here's the King Cole platter, all from the raw bar side, right? It was oysters and clams and cold poached lobster and cold poached shrimp. It's 1975, right? I think it was $8 for the biggest one what would be called the Plateau de Mer. Now with $18.
Only 2 hours of work at your current $1 per hour wage.
I mean, crazy. And I remember the order came in. The first order was for like 6 clams, 6 oysters. And my father had taught me how to shuck. By the way, smart dad, so that he would always have someone when we went digging for clams or oystering, had someone to shuck his shellfish. Um, but I was good. I did everything, and I, put a little sauce in a couple of ramekins and threw a couple bags of oyster crackers on top of this tray, and out it went. And I remember watching it cross the dining room, and I watched, and each person ate one or two pieces in silence, and it was a couple, and the guy leans over. I couldn't see what he said, but based on his date's response, it must have been, "What do you think of the clams and oysters?" Because she sit there and she said, I could read her lips, was like, "Wow, this is great." And I just was like, "Oh my God, I made that." Right? Even though it was as simple as shucking a clam and an oyster, not a lot of cooking involved. I mean, I was hooked already. I knew I wanted to be in the food business, but that really made it super glued.
Wow. So just from that first pass where you watched your guest have your first experience cooking and that was it. I would say that came a little early for most people.
I mean, it honed in on my, horrific sense of codependency, right? I need someone else to be happy to make me happy.
Hey man, that's all of us.
By the way, prepping there all day long, there were, it was all like 25-year-old line cooks. They were cranking Led Zeppelin, right? And other, what we now call classic rock, but at that point was just contemporary music. There were, guys would say, "I'm going to go outside for a cigarette break," but they weren't smoking cigarettes. And I was like, this is the greatest place I've ever been in my life. I want to be with these people all the time. I want to work with these people. When I grow up, I want to be like these people. And, the die was cast. That was it.
That was it. I remember for myself too, my first restaurant job, I was a busboy and I was like 14 and similar age. And I remember the experience of giving people joy and then going to back a house and having all the chefs talk trash and play music. And it felt like it was this rock and roll culture of serving others, but also having a really fun, visceral experience in the process. And I don't know, something about using my hands. Like I love being the CEO, I love being the business owner, but when I'm on the line and I'm grinding, that feeling it's just magical. It feels like it's innate to who we are.
I actually was in a restaurant the other day, and we were doing a dinner. Everyone was looking at me sort of strangely, and I was talking to the other chefs that were participating in this, and somehow it came out that everyone was surprised that I spent the whole night cooking. What do you mean by that? I mean, of course I'm here cooking. And they were like, "Well, I mean, you have your team with you, and a lot of the people who come in here and do these guest dinners, they walk around, their team is putting out the food, and you've you're a man of a certain age and you've accomplished a certain amount in this industry. And it's just we didn't think you would be the guy like cooking each scallop that went on that plate." And it was like, I do that because I like that. I miss the sound of the Microsoft, the Micros machine spitting out tickets, I mean, I miss that sound. I like the competitive nature of it. I like the teamwork of it. I would rather be cooking in a restaurant than doing just about anything.
I think that's what makes you special too is I notice there are very few industries like hospitality, but production actually runs a very similar playbook because if your PA, your production assistant doesn't deliver the raw camera goods to the camera guy, you don't have a camera to play in. And if your dishwasher doesn't bring the dishes to the chef, there's no dish to plate on. And
That's right. And at a certain point, everything goes live and you're in it. It's what I've loved. I mean, obviously I've chosen two industries that are just, it just almost impossible to be successful at. And somehow, I'm still here. So it's pretty incredible.
well, let's talk. I mean, I definitely want to dive into how you're still here and not just still here, but crushing it. I mean, we look up to you, and I think a lot of our guests and viewership are really curious about how you've been able to stay in such a strong place. And I use strong in the word that you built your surroundings around you. You've built, in my feeling, and we're going to talk about it, but you've built this world that you get to be at the center of, and that's life by design. That's not an easy thing for people to do. That takes, discipline. It takes persistence, consistency, a lot of what it takes in the kitchen, obviously. But we'll dive into that. So after your first spark, and you said what was the name of the restaurant?
The Quiet Clam.
The Quiet Clam. That's a good name. Okay, so after Quiet Clam 75, we're listening to Zeppelin, we're having fun. You get addicted to the life. It's the culture, it's the vibe, it's the toxicity and the beauty of the restaurant industry. And so walk me through kind of what that early stage of your career was like. And then let's talk about, not every road goes straight up. And so maybe what that first dip was like for you and how you were able to kind of navigate that and make that part of your history and your story.
Had a good summer. Begged my parents to let me work one night a week during the winter
During the
time.
school year? Yeah.
During the school year. My godfather, Frank Granite, was a restaurateur from San Francisco, had just moved to New York City, was one of Leslie Revson's partners at 1/5 Avenue, the restaurant 1/5 that has changed hands many times.
Yeah, Ford's has that now, right? Yeah.
Forgione is there now. Batali had it for a while. I mean, famous place. Leslie died of cancer a while ago, but she was one of the few successful female chefs doing fine dining in New York City in the 70s. One of the only. And I learned so much from her just that one day a week. And, my father was like, you got to go to college. I'll support whatever quote unquote crazy idea you have about food, but you got to go to college. I went to Vassar College. I learned how to read, write, and think critically. Mostly I did a lot of drugs, drank a lot, cooked for a lot of people in our townhouse. I was always cooking, sort of never stopped, worked during the summer in, and by the way, I was kicked out of school 3 times. So 3 different times I had to take a mandatory semester off. And so often that was either leading into a summer or coming after a summer. And so I would go away and cook. And I cooked in Paris. I cooked in Venice, both for about 4 or 5 months, cooked in Hong Kong, and got a real taste for globalism there. I had traveled the world a lot with my dad. He was a larger-than-life figure who was helping to build an international advertising company. So I knew sort of what the world of food looked like to a certain extent, but really fascinated me. Came back home after all of this cooking and finally graduating college and, built a couple restaurants and focused on a restaurant group in New York that became pretty successful. Drank and drugged my way out of that job. And my life at that point started to get progressively worse. I was not able to control my addictions. We all think that we can. We think we can manage them. Whether our addiction is women, gambling, workaholism, some of us are addicted to laziness,
Yep.
or lying or whatever. We managing an addiction is an impossibility because eventually, while we think we're managing it, it starts, eventually became unemployable, rejected by all my friends, rightfully so, and became a loner, homeless on the streets of New York for a year, squatting in an abandoned building that I lived in, tried to kill myself in early January of 1992 because life just wasn't worth living. And the only solution that I felt made any sense at all was just to snuff myself out. And I woke up in a Flophouse hotel about a day and a half after swallowing a fistful of barbiturates and drinking a bunch of Popov vodka in plastic bottles. I'll never forget it. And I wasn't dead. And I picked up the phone and I asked a friend for help, something I had never done before in my life. And that was it. I was off to the sobriety races. Now, I should say it wasn't as neat. Recovery wasn't that neat and pleasant. I had umpteen times I had tried to get sober. I had, lied, cheated, stolen, crossed every moral boundary that there was for me. I was fully a user of people and taker of things before I sobered up. And I got a one-way ticket to Minnesota really in the nick of time, and it saved my life. And that was January 28th, 1992. And I've been sober ever since. Well, I got a job as a dishwasher in a coffee shop.
Okay.
That was fantastic job. There were two cooks that did breakfast and lunch, and then the place closed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I washed dishes. I got there at like 5 in the morning and set things up. One of the two guys would always no show. And, these guys were real. They had a lot of isms. They just weren't aware of them. Pretty much every day I got a chance to work one of the stations, and it's eggs and pancakes and BLTs and tuna sandwiches for lunch and, special soup and all the rest of that. And I leveraged that job into a dishwashing job at a French bistro in New York City. Was in New York City that opened up in an office tower in Minneapolis. I knew the owners in New York. So I sort of anonymously, slid in as a dishwasher into this restaurant, and they hired me. And I stayed in that job until the day I left the halfway house I was living in. And that day I took over the kitchen there. And within 2 weeks had replaced everybody with incredible sober cooks. Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, is a mecca for people getting sober. And so folks in our industry would come from New York, LA, Miami, Seattle, Chicago, be told that they needed to stick around, live in a halfway house, go to meetings, get their sober legs underneath them. And I was offering a different kind of kitchen, one that there wasn't a shift drink, where there was a lot of sobriety talk. And I put up signs in all the different halfway houses. And we just got some incredible folks from incredible restaurants. And we created, what, at the time, the local critics here called the best restaurant in town, which I was very, very proud of. And then one day I just said to myself, I need a bigger audience for my stories. I got into media, and the rest, as they say, is history. That kind of took off.
It's so beautiful that you were able to recognize that there was an opportunity in all of this to give back to the community that helped you. And I think that's something we're going to see as a theme, right? But it's, to not only have the awareness to hire the people who are going through sobriety, to give them a chance. Because I think in those moments, right, it's about someone trusting you to be that person, that you believe in them. And also, you need great chefs, which are hard to come by, and people who are consistent and show up. So it was an amazing crossroads of both recognizing opportunity and giving back to where it is. And I mean, that's one of those things, like they say, a win-win-win, right? Win for the restaurant, win for you, win for them. And that's really cool. So I love hearing that story.
What I've learned at my ripe old age is that life is not about things. It's not about the cars, not about the girls, not about the money. It's not about the things. Life is about doing things for other people. That is what life is about. When you are taking a selfless approach to life, you are building community. You are creating the template for yourself to be successful. You are establishing, people talk about legacy all the time like it's some fancy thing. Just show up for other people in your community. And guess what? Incredible things are going to happen in your life. I spent the vast majority of my life thinking that first comes me, then comes me again, then comes my dog, right? Then comes you, you're fourth, right? That's how I ran my life.
Fair enough.
It couldn't be further from the truth. When I put you first,
well,
right?
The dog has to be first, right? But then
all the things, they put themselves first, at least in my house. But when we put ourselves first, we are doomed to be miserable. It never works out, right? It is a spiritual axiom that when we do things for other people, we are taking ourselves away from our own problems and our own desires. And what happens is we become happy with what we have. Right. And at the end of the day, as human beings, really what we want to do is be happy, right? Sure. I don't want to be always chasing more, right? That's addict behavior. More. I want to be happy with what I'm building and what I'm doing. And when I focus on other people and not myself, magically I feel right sized. And it took me many, many, many years to learn that. Now I'm lucky in that I've been able to build businesses and projects and things in my life using that as a template, thereby, oh my gosh, guess what? Really cool things have happened to me. Chasing things where other people benefit is infinitely more successful when it comes to a life plan than chasing things for yourself. Now, invariably, and this is where it kind of gets into that mind fuck space, the more you do for other people, the more things you get for yourself. It is one of those one of life's beautiful, sweet ironies that is almost impossible to explain except in spiritual terms. But we do get contentment and we do find peace and happiness when we are doing things for other people. When we're doing things for ourselves, that stuff is impossible to attain.
The law of attraction. It reminds you of, so, we lost our house in the recent Palisades fire, and I sat there depressed, and then I got on my food truck and I served 30,000 people over that next month. And I could tell you, day one of being on my truck, everything I was so concerned about, all my clothes, my mom's things, this, that, which are all meaningful, but they just kind of slide away, and you're like, I'm in service of others. This feels what's right. And I guess it's those life defining moments that teach you these lessons, because, maybe if you didn't go down that path, you would still be thinking about yourself first, and you wouldn't have had this blissful existence where you can help others and also receive. And so I think,
Oh, you said something that I think is really important that I wanted to underline, that you said day one of cooking on my truck. So day one in being of service, regardless of what you're doing, right, is a miraculous thing, because we all have the same problems. Okay. We all have houses that burn and parents that die and kids that get sick and spouses that are mad at us and girlfriends or boyfriends we lose, or what. Life is life. It's fired at point blank range. No one is immune to it. It is just, it happens, right? It is not a straight line of success for anyone, right? So when you are on that day one on that truck, just like the first night that some old timers came to me and said, hey, after the meeting, we're going to go talk to some drunks at the Dorothy Day Center. Why don't you come with us? And something inside me said yes, even though my brain was screaming, no, I want to go home and watch TV. I mean, like, what are you, crazy? But that first night that I did service work at 7-8 months sober in the group that at the time was my home group, I got back to my house and I was like, wow, none of the circumstances of my life changed. I still was in debt. I still was struggling in recovery. I was still this. I could name all these negative things. But for those 3 or 4 hours, I never thought about it. Like, none of those things crossed my mind. I was focused on the other person and the message that we were carrying to the people inside that recovery center. And then I realized another thing. I was like, oh my gosh, but I also kind of feel good about myself. And it's like, wow, I haven't felt good about myself. I haven't felt self-esteem in years. Like, all that because I went and did something for 4 hours. And I know, because I've been that person on that truck. I've been you, where despite whatever tragedy, and losing your house in the fires is a tragedy. Losing a lot of things is a tragedy. It is traumatic. It is awful. Everyone who cares about you I remember sending you a note just saying, what do you even say during things like that, right? And you were not the only one of my friends to lose a house in those fires. And yet there you do, the first thing, you get on that truck and I could fill in the blanks for you, because I can see you now. You're not thinking about yourself and your problems. The things that you have are diminishing. Power over you is diminishing. And it is a way of living life that really works. Now, there are a lot of other ways to live life. I've tried some of them, not all of them. The ones that I was trying don't work. I only have my own experience. But I do know that what has worked for me is to try to live an other-centered life. And when I live an other-centered life, I am right-sized.
Beautiful. That is very timeless advice. And I think, when we think about our audience and, all of us at home that are food entrepreneurs and people in the hospitality space, you know what that feeling is. Even if you realize it or don't realize it, you're serving others. And so you have that innate energy in you. And as the wise words of Andrew said, let's go out there and do something nice
It's right there,
right
but
there.
my friend Will Guidara writes a lot about this. I mean, it's the whole thesis behind unreasonable hospitality and the work that he's doing based on the success of that book. When you're in the hospitality business, we forget sometimes that we're in the hospitality business.
That's true. Totally.
How can we take 2 percentage points off of our cost of goods? How can we reduce our payroll by 30? We get into the minutia of business management and we forget the grace that comes from providing someone else with a great experience. And what I have found in the hospitality space is that when we remind ourselves why we are in it, and when we do go that extra mile for that person, guess what? Business picks up. Guess what? We're able to manage a little more fluidly. That fight, flight, or freeze. I always say it wrong. That fight, flight, or freeze thing that happens. A lot of us, when we're going through struggles as entrepreneurs, especially in the food space, is most people freeze. But it's easier. No one wants to run away, right? Very few people want to fight.
Yeah.
So freeze seems to be the right thing to do. And, everyone thinks you mean actual freezing. It's like, no, I mean, how about just being an ostrich? Like, ignore the problem. Our food cost is too high. I can live with that for years. I may not bring as much to the bottom line, and then I'm not able to afford repairs on the physical space, and I can't take care of my employees the same way. It has a negative trickle-down effect, but you can go years living in that bad space. But when you are taking the other-centered approach and you are putting hospitality first, your own mindset, it's like working out. You feel better.
Yeah.
You're able to do more things. You're able to talk to your employees in a different way. I have I call it an op-ed. It's really a letter that Open Table is distributing to people in the hospitality business all around the country. I think in a couple of weeks, I'm sure a lot of the listeners will find it in their email box. But I wrote an essay for them called The Eternalism of Service. And it's really about this thing. When you are putting hospitality first, you're engaged in a different conversation with your colleagues and coworkers. It doesn't come from negativity. It doesn't come from a place of having less. It comes from a place of abundance. What can we offer these people today, right? It's a change in mindset that breeds success. And people can accept that or not accept it. And I feel sorry for the people. It is to you because you've experienced it. Problem here is that we're two peas in the pod. I can tell you right now, there are people who are listening to this who are saying, this guy's fucking crazy. I'll spend more time doing A, B, and C, and that's fine. My experience says differently. My experience says that if you focus too much on self, you are invariably going to put yourself in a position to not only hurt yourself, but hurt others. You will be of diminished capacity, and you will not be able to solve the problems that you believe you are solving by doing it. You're literally either burying your head in the sand or getting on that gerbil trail and just moving too quickly. And by living an other-centered existence in your workplace, with your family, with your friends, you are doing all the things that we know innately as human beings we need to do. Slowing down, listening, taking in the advice of others, remembering that no one is an island, right? This is a team sport. All the things that are so crucial and so important to living a content life.
I love it. Okay. Well, let's switch gears for a second. So that was hugely impactful. I'm learning a lot again. And I actually want to go back to my team after this and say, when's the last time someone came out of their way to tell us that we changed their lives? Because it happens in food service more than you think, right? And I'm gonna push on that. So that was great. Thank you. What's the transition from chef, running a kitchen, Minneapolis, Bazaar Foods? And I actually was doing a little bit of reconnaissance before we had our call. And I talked to someone who said that they were there with you around your aha moment, realizing that globalization was happening, realizing that there's interesting foods out there that people should know about, and showing culture through food. And so how did you How did you go from that to here? And I know storytelling is a big part of it, but great. I want to storytell with the world. I don't suddenly get one of the best shows that lasted forever on the Food Network. And so,
I realized in the late 90s that I wanted a bigger audience and I wanted to tell bigger stories. So I started working for a local radio station, a local magazine, and a local TV station so that I could learn every aspect of storytelling, so I could learn the nuts and bolts of how to edit, how to light, how to talk on camera, how to engage. Radio, by the way, was great for that. And I sort of created a little university level class syllabus for myself that I could, actually learn some of this stuff. And I started doing work on other people's shows, one day, bit player stuff. And then eventually I was the regular on a gardening show where I would cook vegetable dishes, and on an HGTV show that was doing tips, household tips, and I did kitchen tips and things like that. And all the while I'm putting together my own tape and pushing my own idea. And, one of the things that you actually hear it a lot these days on Top Chef. It's the only other place I've really ever heard it. And I know why, because Tom injected it into that show from day one. And he and I, came up in New York at the same time. We heard the same things from the same chefs. We worked in some of the same restaurants. And you always hear Tom at some point, especially the early seasons of Top Chef, saying to people, you have to start cooking with your own voice at some point, right? You got to start cooking your own story, cook your own food, right? It is the same thing in media, right? I don't want to be like other people. A lousy business plan says, I'm going to do what everyone else is doing, just better. A good business plan says, I'm going to do something that's an only, right? Better to be the only than to be the best, right? And
I haven't heard that before. It's not an automatic right. That's a thinker, and I think it's actually very smart.
Well, the only is way more bulletproof. The best is someone's judgment, right? So I was like, what have I seen around the world that other people aren't talking about? I did pitch my show to Food Network, and they said, yeah, we're not really interested, but we love you and we think you're great. What about doing a dump and stir show? And a dump and stir show, a talking head behind a cutting board, all the Saturday morning shows, right? Pioneer woman. I mean, I'm standing there, I'm cooking. Here's the 3 things in a garden. Here's what I'm making today. I'm sitting there and I'm trying to think of this thing, and I'm transported back to some trips with my dad, eating little tiny baby pigs in Valle de los Caídos in Spain, eating bigorneau, tiny little blue periwinkle snails with him in France, eating angulas, little tiny baby eels in Spain. And I'm like, wow, no one's ever talking about that. Everyone's talking about like how to saute a chicken breast the right way and making, a cream sauce with sun-dried tomatoes. Like, okay, I get it. But lots of people are talking about that. It's why I turned down the Food Network offer. I didn't want to be one of 20 chefs with a dump and stir show.
Wow.
And I pitched Bizarre Foods to Travel Channel. And at the time, the general manager of Travel Channel was about to hire a young storyteller named Tony Bourdain to do a show called No Reservations. Well, actually, he was about to buy a show from Food Network that was failing on Food Network called A Chef's Journey, Chef's Voyage. It was Tony's first show.
Okay.
It was on Food Network. And he wanted to put it on Travel Channel for a year while they incubated him to figure out what his show would be. And so Tony's shooting his first season for Travel Channel. I'm shooting my first season for Travel Channel. Pat Young knows he's going to put these shows back to back on a Monday night. Tony delivers his show. He has his first 12 episodes go out, his season. It's a big hit. Season 2 premieres 5 months later. My show's the lead-in. What I had pitched, and then the rest is kind of history. What I had pitched the network on was let's go around the world and tell stories about foods from the fringe in an effort to demonstrate to people that while we may be eating different things, we're the same underneath. If we tell the cultural story behind the fermented Greenlandic ice shark, everyone is going to relate to it in every culture. Oh, yeah, in my culture, we preserve food too. I didn't know you could preserve it by letting it rot. Eventually, the bad bacteria that'll kill you is eaten by the good bacteria. So all the stink is there, but it's not going to make you sick at all. And in fact, some people find it quite delicious. That's a really great hook. That's the kind of thing that's like, come here, Marge, you won't believe what this guy's eating on TV. And the reason that I accepted that job, which some people may see as like, well, that's not even real food. That's like, you're scraping the bottom of a dumpster for something. I often say, well, we never scrape the bottom of the dumpster for everything. These were foods that are very popular in those cultures. But I was also selling kind of a Trojan horse to the Travel Channel. I wanted to make was the show that rolled out in season 2 and onward. Season 1, I ate a lot of bugs.
Yeah.
But I was studying television, and I knew that eventually the leverage wheel would swing in my direction if the show was popular. If it wasn't popular, I'd be out of a job. I was willing to take that risk. If the show was successful, I would be able to skew the story a little more towards educating the viewer that we were increasingly creating a world where we defined ourselves by our differences. And I saw the world going negative. Was it Bush v. Gore? Was it the Twin Towers going down? What was it that I saw? I was out traveling and listening to people, and America was becoming polarized. This is in the late 90s, early aughts. And so I wanted to create a show that everyone could enjoy and say, wow, there may be things that separate us and we eat different foods, but at the end of the day, we all want the same thing for our kids. We all want the same thing for ourselves. We all want to be happy. And the last, 11 seasons of Bizarre Foods, that was the tentpole of it all. It was 75% entertainment, 25% education, but that's a good recipe. I wanted to be on TV for a long time. And if you want to be on TV for a long time, you better entertain people. People don't watch TV to be educated. They watch TV to be entertained.
Well, and subtly, like you said, a Trojan horse. And I think the timing of it and the beauty of the show really was showcasing cultures and showcasing people and making it relatable. And you did it at a time in the world where, you had foresight, which is really beautiful, into knowing that we needed it. But I always remember, like, I was in Singapore and I was doing this charity event, and I learned how to cook chili crab with an auntie, and we couldn't speak one word together. She didn't speak any English and I didn't speak any of Chinese, and we learned how to cook a dish together. And I was like, this is the only thing that I know of in this world that can melt tension, can really kind of connect us on different levels. It's food. It's that, and it's the passion of food that every culture, almost everybody has. There's definitely people out there who don't eat for life, but most people, I feel like, have that, even if it's just a nostalgic dish.
That's 100% true. It's interesting because empathy is a word that gets thrown around a lot about human beings needing to possess it. And if you listen to people like Brene Brown and her contemporaries, you realize that, wow, if I want to be happy, I better have empathy. And very few people talk about what empathy really means. I had a big awakening around 15 years ago around empathy before it became this big sort of cultural watchword this decade in America, at least. I have a stump speech on the road that I give a lot around this topic of happiness that's called Be the Dog, right? The dog, you could be the worst person in the world, right? Hitler had a dog. Hitler would come home, horrible man, did horrible things, sits down on the couch, and the dog hops up on his lap and just lays there. Dogs are pure empathy. You mentioned dogs before. I assume you're a dog owner.
Of course.
I'm a dog owner, always have been. Dogs are pure empathy. And in life, we are not the dog enough. And I want to explain what I mean. What we tend to do as human beings is we tend to operationalize before we co-regulate. So if you are my friend, okay, and we're roommates, and you come home and you're all like angry and all over the place, I'm like, Daniel, what the fuck? Like, are you okay? Oh, I lost my phone at work. It's got everything I have in. I mean, we all know what phones are, right? I can't afford a new one, and I'm supposed to do this thing tonight, and it's my girlfriend's birthday, and you're upset. I mean, you are white hot, not red hot. And I interrupt you and I say, did you call the security guard at your office building? Your first words are going to be like, screw you. Of course I did. I'm smart. I drove around when I realized my phone was like, I went back in there, and just you mutter and go off, because what you really wanted was for me just to listen and to be your friend and just hear it out. Now, if you come in and it's the same thing, you're white hot, I lost the phone, my life is ending, and I just sit there and I go, oh my God, that sounds awful. Let me get you a glass of water. And then I get you a glass of water and I'm like, so what else? You're like, well, guess what? They found respecting other people and being empathetic actually means just being with them without solving their problem. Now, if I co-regulate with you, get you the glass of water, ask you what else, you may calm down enough, get out of your lizard brain and back into your thinking human part of your brain. And you may look at me and say, can you think of it? I did X, Y, and Z. Is there anything else that I should be doing? Right. I mean, we can actually solve that problem together. Being empathy is the key to happiness. Empathy is what can define us. Empathy is what will save us on planet Earth. It'll save us in this country. It'll save us in our communities. It'll save us in this divided country that we have. But we have to understand what that means, co-regulating before we operationalize. No one wants to be told what to do unless they trust the person who's doing the telling. Right?
Well, and there's a resonance to taking care of each other too, where you'll start to feel, if I'm in your energy and you're feeling calm and you're calming me, I'm all of a sudden going to start to relax, right? Versus, yeah, totally. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. I just want to talk about something that's very special. So for those of you who don't know at home, Andrew is a partner in Snibs. He's one of our esteemed culinary collective. And when we met him in our first meeting, we had a conversation, and I was doing my best to pitch you. Honestly, I came into that call being so excited to talk to you and tell you about this. But I learned very early that if you're not passionate about the product, it doesn't matter what I try to convince you. It's not going to be a good partnership. And so I think I came out like 7 words before you just looked at me. And I guess this is your empathetic nature. And you just said, Daniel, I get it. And it was one of those moments where I felt so safe because I was like, oh, he actually gets it. And I think most people in the industry understand what we're trying to accomplish. But at the same time, it just resonated. And I think you've had this ability with me and with our whole team at Snibs. Everybody who's worked with you in my company just has the best things to say. But they all come back to me with the same exact thing. Andrew gets it. He gets the vision. He gets what we're trying to do. He's building it with us. He's on the ship while the ship is moving, and he's helping build the wing so that we can land the plane. And it's this amazing feeling that you've brought to us. How do you get it? Like, what about, and so this is specific to footwear. I know you get a lot of things everywhere, but when it comes to Snibs, when it comes to understanding footwear in our environment, what was that natural feeling where you were just like, I get it, and why?
Because you described to me an only.
Ah, I see. Yeah. Wow.
So it's very easy. By the way, you were probably so excited. You misremember. I believe what I said was, I get it. The answer, yes. Let's just move on to the next thing. Yes. How do we do this?
Yeah.
I really just wanted to politely and respectfully take you out of pitch mode, which is stressful. I pitch things all the time. I mean, I own a production company. We're always pitching, right? And into, we're going to do this. The answer is yes. Like, I get it. Like, what step? We're already past steps A, B, and C. Let's go to step D. And the reason is consciously or unconsciously, you were describing something that was a really cool product that was different to the marketplace, that would actually work more efficiently and effectively. and it seemed to me like an only. And I was just like, I love this. This is great. I mean, sure, there could have been other things in the deal that wound up killing it later on, but for the sake of that conversation, it's like, I get it. I'm in. And I respond really well to passionate entrepreneurism, especially when it's around onlys.
I did change the nature of that conversation. I'm locking that in the box. If I can do that for someone as well, when I know there's a different, when one person's coming in really excited to share something with me and I can make them feel at ease, because it really changed the tone of our conversation. And I really thank you for that. That was really beautiful. And I didn't know it was a purposeful thing. So now that I do, I'm even a little bit more enamored by the situation. So that was very cool.
I consider myself, when people say, list your accomplishments, the first thing that comes out of my mouth is always, I'm a pretty spiritual person. I had to work at that really, really, really hard and very consciously, still do every day for the last 33 and a half years. When people ask me about this, I say, well, spiritual work can be a lot. Sometimes it's walking on the beach with your dog. Sometimes it's a yoga. Sometimes there's all kinds of different ways to do this. The same words apply to all of it, which is, it's called a spiritual practice. Right? So that means you actually have to practice it. And I'm lucky that I've been practicing it for long enough. So now I have that Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing. So the things that I believe in that are part of my spiritual practice, I can recognize in other people. And my mind is slow enough, sort of matrixy kind of way, that I can actually see like, oh, okay, there's an only. Yeah. Yeah. Like I don't have to take on your emotional force field, which a lot of people do by nature. Someone gets really up and then the other person gets really up, and, I'm not perfect at it. I'm still spiritual practicing all the time, but there are a couple things that I've gotten pretty good at, and that's one of them.
And there's an extreme presence and listening that is in that practice, I'm sure. So, all right. Well, here we have our rapid fire questions. They're really fun and playful. We do it with every guest. It's pretty much to wrap us up.
I will be the judge if they're fun or plainful.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Let's see when we're done how fun and playful they are.
Well, let's start with, what was the worst thing that happened to you? No, I'm just kidding. So when it comes to your recipe for success, what are the 3 key ingredients?
Wow. That is a big question.
It's the first thing that comes to mind too.
In 3 ingredients. Number 1, be willing to invest in the loss, right? Because you're going to learn something. Be willing to invest in the loss. The other one would be, I'm a talker and an over talker. So I always ask myself, is it true? Does it need to be said? And if it's true and if it needs to be said, is it up to me to say it?
Okay.
It's the third question there that you always gets hung up. It may be true. It may need to be said. It may not be up to me to say it. And the other one would be yourself.
Okay. Very true.
To be something else.
Beautiful. Okay. And now comes the fun ones. And I guess to your point, you'll let me know at the end if they are. So omakase tasting or a la carte menu?
Omakase.
Okay. So for most people, we go with booze. For you, we're going to do herbal tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Coffee. Fair. Front of house or back of house?
Back of house.
Dessert or extra savory plate?
Extra savory.
Amen. Daily special or customer favorite?
Daily special.
Okay. Smash burger or full-size patty?
Both.
Neapolitan or New York style slice?
Well, I'm a born and bred New Yorker, so it's going to have to be a street slice.
Fair enough. And then bagel with lox and schmear or bacon, egg, and cheese?
Oh my God, that's like, which of your 2 first girlfriends was a better kisser? I mean, that is, well, if you are what you eat, I'm 60% Russ and Daughters, Gaspé Nova bagels and the schmear, so I'll have to go.
I love those white jackets. I could go there.
I will say this. That's only because the bagel sandwich, the egg sandwiches, breakfast sandwiches in the Midwest suck. And here's why. And I hate to say it, California, sort of the same way as an East Coast. Here's what is missing.
Yeah.
New York, they have something called a Kaiser roll,
Mm-hmm.
which is crunchy on the outside and has soft, spongy dough with a almost no crumb at all, almost elasticy, almost like a banh mi bun on the inside. And that to me is the perfect delivery system for an egg sandwich. Egg sandwiches have to come on a Kaiser roll and nothing else. And I just miss them for the longest time. So,
It's
and
a
I
little
have
bit of both.
Russ's daughters every month. The box gets airlifted and parachuted down to me in central Minnesota.
Amen. Okay, so I'm seeing your smile, so I'm going to say fun. The questions were a little bit fun for you.
Fun,
Okay, good.
fun.
Okay,
Yeah, we
okay.
got to talk about Russ and daughters.
Okay. Well, Andrew, thanks for reminding us that empathy, focus, that you can rebuild from a really difficult starting place. And that all comes from thinking about others first. You inspired me. I'm definitely going back to my team with some of the takeaways from our call. And your journey shows when brand and purpose align, opportunity finds its way. Crew, follow Andrew at andrewzimmern.com or at Andrew Zimmern. Crew, follow Andrew at Andrew Zimmern and check out our Snibs collaboration when it comes out. It's going to be epic. Hit and follow Dine and Grind and leave us a review. Big thanks to Snibs for letting us chase dreams without slipping. And until next time, keep your knives sharp, your heart open, and your brand honest. I'm Daniel. See you on the line. Thank you, Andrew, for spending the last hour with us.